Sundar Pichai had always been a quiet and thoughtful boy. From his early school days in Chennai, India, he was known for being calm, respectful, and a little shy. He didn't like to show off or talk much in class, but everyone noticed one thing about him. He was extremely smart. His mind worked differently, almost like a machine that carefully studied and understood everything it saw. When Sundar entered IIT Kharagpur, one of India's most prestigious engineering colleges, he was stepping into a world full of bright young students from all over the country, many of whom were confident and outspoken. The atmosphere was competitive, and students often tried to prove themselves by speaking up and showing their knowledge. On the very first day of his calculus class, Sundar quietly found a seat at the back of the large lecture hall. He didn't want to attract attention. He preferred to listen and learn rather than participate loudly or be the center of attention. The room was buzzing with energy. Students were chatting, joking, and trying to make friends. But Sundar sat quietly, focused on the professor who was just beginning to speak. The calculus professor was a strict and somewhat feared man. His reputation was well known across campus. He had a sharp tongue and was famous for being tough on students. Many people said he enjoyed challenging his students with very difficult problems, but some also whispered that he sometimes tried to embarrass those he didn't think were smart enough. He rarely smiled and often looked down at students who didn't answer questions correctly or who hesitated. When the professor looked around the classroom, his eyes fell on Sundar. The young student's quietness caught his attention, but not in a positive way. In his mind, Sundar seemed like just another shy boy who might struggle with the complexity of calculus. The professor assumed Sundar's silence meant he was unprepared or lacking understanding. He didn't realize that behind those calm eyes was a mind working faster and deeper than most. As the professor began the lecture, he wrote complex formulas on the board. Many students were taking notes eagerly, but some were already feeling lost. Calculus was known to be difficult, and the professor's style was strict and unforgiving. He spoke in a sharp tone, expecting students to keep up with his fast pace. Sundar, however, was completely focused. He wasn't just copying what was on the board. He was thinking about what the formulas meant, how they connected, and how he could solve the problem step by step. Days passed, and Sundar's routine in that calculus class became clear. He was always there on time, always paying attention, and never distracted. Some students tried to approach him, but he was polite and brief in conversation, preferring to keep to himself. Many classmates didn't know much about him. To them, Sundar was just the quiet guy in the back. They had no idea about his sharp intellect or the way his mind worked so naturally with numbers and concepts. Meanwhile, the professor watched Sundar closely. He noticed the boy's silence and lack of participation, and began to think of ways to test him. The professor was known to challenge students in front of the whole class, sometimes to encourage them, but other times to expose them if they weren't prepared. He decided that Sundar would be an easy target, someone to humiliate and prove wrong, to remind the class that not everyone could keep up with the difficult subject. One day, during a lecture on integrals, a complex part of calculus, the professor paused. He turned to Sundar and said loudly, "You there, answer this problem on the board." The room fell silent. All eyes shifted toward Sundar. Some students smiled quietly, expecting him to fail. The professor presented a problem that was so difficult that even advanced students hesitated. It was a problem involving tricky steps, and most people took a long time to solve it. The professor's tone was mocking, clearly hoping Sundar would stumble and embarrass himself. Sundar stood up calmly, without hesitation. The entire class watched as he took the chalk and began writing on the board. His hands moved steadily, and his mind was clear. Instead of rushing, he carefully explained each step out loud, breaking down the problem into smaller parts. He used a clever technique, a shortcut he had discovered while studying on his own. The technique wasn't taught in class, but Sundar had read about it in advanced math books and practiced it quietly. Minutes passed, and the classroom was filled with silence. Students were holding their breath, waiting for the professor's reaction. When Sundar finished, the solution was perfect. The problem was solved completely and elegantly. The professor's face turned pale for a moment. He was stunned. The boy he had thought would embarrass himself had not only answered correctly but had done so in a way that impressed even him. The professor's usual sharp tone was replaced by a quiet, almost grudging acknowledgement. He said nothing more that day about Sundar, but the atmosphere in the room had changed. Some students started whispering to each other, "Did you see that? Sundar just solved that crazy problem." Others looked at Sundar with new respect, realizing he was not just quiet but genuinely brilliant. Despite this moment of victory, Sundar didn't smile or boast. He quietly returned to his seat and continued listening. To him, it wasn't about proving anyone wrong or showing off. It was about learning and understanding. His focus remained on the beauty of math and the satisfaction of solving a problem, with his own mind. As the weeks went on, Sundar continued to excel. The professor, who had initially tried to put him down, now viewed him differently, though he didn't say it openly. Behind the scenes, the professor started to prepare more challenging problems, secretly hoping Sundar would rise to the occasion again. Sundar, unaware of this change, simply continued to study with his usual dedication. In the classroom, Sundar's reputation quietly grew. Other students who had ignored him now asked him for help with difficult problems. He helped patiently, never acting superior. For Sundar, sharing knowledge was part of the journey, not a competition. His humble attitude made him popular among classmates, even those who had once doubted him. This first part of Sundar's story is a beautiful reminder that true talent doesn't always shout the loudest. Sometimes it sits quietly in the back row, unnoticed at first but ready to shine brilliantly when given a chance. Sundar's calm confidence and deep understanding of mathematics were just the beginning of a journey that would take him far beyond the classroom walls. After Sundar Pichai had confidently solved the difficult integral problem in front of the whole class, something changed in the atmosphere of the calculus course. The professor, who had always been strict and a bit intimidating, could no longer see Sundar as just another quiet student. But the professor was still proud and wanted to keep control of his classroom, so he decided to test Sundar again. This time, even more publicly, and in a way that he thought would embarrass the young man. One afternoon, during a particularly important lecture, the professor brought out a problem known for its complexity. This was not an ordinary question. It involved multiple steps and required a deep understanding of differential equations, a topic that even many advanced students found challenging. The professor had spent time preparing it specifically to challenge students who he thought were struggling, or to show off his own expertise. As the professor wrote the problem on the large blackboard, he looked at Sundar with a sharp, almost mocking smile. The entire classroom fell silent, sensing what was about to happen. The professor paused, then said loudly, "Sundar, why don't you try this one? Let's see if you can handle it." His tone was firm and slightly sarcastic, making it clear he expected Sundar to fail or at least struggle. Sundar looked up calmly. He did not feel nervous or intimidated. He had studied similar problems before and trusted his own thinking. Instead of feeling pressure, he felt curious. The problem was complicated, but he was ready to give it his best effort. Slowly, Sundar stood up and walked to the blackboard. The eyes of the entire class were fixed on him. Some students whispered quietly, betting on whether Sundar would stumble or succeed. The professor watched with a serious expression, confident that Sundar would not be able to solve the question. Sundar took a deep breath and began working through the problem. He carefully analyzed each part, breaking down the complex equation into simpler pieces. Unlike many students who rushed to write answers, Sundar worked thoughtfully and patiently. His chalk moved steadily on the board, step by step. As he explained his reasoning aloud, it became clear that Sundar was not just solving the problem, he was understanding it deeply. He connected the equations to real-life situations, showing how the math described changes in physical systems like heat or movement. This approach made the problem more interesting for the students watching. Some leaned forward, fascinated by the clear logic in Sundar's solution. The professor watched, now with a mixture of surprise and respect. He hadn't expected such a strong answer. Sundar's solution was elegant and logical, not rushed or careless. It was clear that Sundar had spent time thinking beyond the textbook, applying his own insights. When Sundar finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then a few students quietly started clapping, impressed by the young man's skill. The professor, however, did not join in the applause. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, "Well done, Pichai. But the true test is understanding how these concepts apply outside of the classroom. Math is not just about solving problems on the board. It's about using it in the real world." This statement marked a turning point in the relationship between the professor and Sundar. The professor stopped openly mocking him and began to challenge him with more difficult, real-world problems. It was a subtle shift, but one that showed the professor's growing respect for Sundar's abilities. In the weeks that followed, Sundar was given more opportunities to demonstrate his understanding. The professor asked him to present solutions during lectures and even invited him to help other students struggling with calculus. Sundar's quiet confidence became a source of inspiration in the classroom. Many students who had once ignored him now came to him for advice. Outside the classroom, Sundar continued to study hard. He spent long hours in the library, reading advanced math books and learning about the latest research. He wasn't interested in fame or recognition. He simply loved discovering new ideas and solving difficult problems. His classmates noticed something special about Sundar. He didn't just memorize formulas, he understood the reasons behind them. He could explain complex concepts in simple terms, making them easier for others to grasp. This made him popular among students from different departments who sought his help. Despite his growing reputation, Sundar remained humble. He never boasted or looked down on others. To him, learning was a lifelong journey, and every challenge was a chance to grow. His kindness and patience earned him many friends and admirers. Back in the classroom, the professor's attitude continued to evolve. He no longer saw Sundar as just a quiet student to be humiliated. Instead, he began to appreciate the young man's intellect and dedication. While he still maintained his strict teaching style, his questions to Sundar became more thoughtful and respectful. One day, the professor invited Sundar to a private meeting after class. He told Sundar that he had been impressed by his problem-solving skills and encouraged him to pursue research in mathematics. This was a rare compliment from a man who rarely praised students openly. Sundar thanked the professor but said he was more interested in engineering and technology. He wanted to use his math skills to build things that could help people. The professor nodded, understanding that Sundar's talents were not limited to the classroom. This moment marked the beginning of a new phase in Sundar's academic journey. The challenges he faced in calculus not only strengthened his math skills, but also taught him important lessons about confidence, humility, and perseverance. As the semester progressed, Sundar's classmates grew more respectful and curious about his abilities. They saw him not as a quiet boy in the back row, but as someone who could solve the toughest problems with calm and clarity. His story became a quiet inspiration for many students who struggled with math but wanted to improve. Sundar's experience with the professor also showed him the value of facing challenges head-on. Instead of avoiding difficult problems or fearing failure, he learned to embrace them as opportunities to learn and grow. This mindset would later help him overcome many obstacles in his career. In the end, the calculus classroom became more than just a place for learning formulas. It became a place where respect was earned through hard work and intelligence, and where even a quiet student like Sundar Pichai could shine brightly. After Sundar had solved two very difficult problems in front of the entire class, something changed between him and the calculus professor. The professor, who was once eager to embarrass Sundar, began to treat him differently. But he was still proud and competitive, and didn't want to openly admit that Sundar was better than many others in the class. So instead, he decided to test Sundar with even harder questions, hoping to find something that would challenge the young man and maybe even shake his confidence. One day, the professor wrote a problem on the board that involved differential equations, combined with real-world applications. This was not just a math problem, but one that required understanding how math could explain things like how heat spreads or how populations grow over time. These kinds of problems were usually studied in advanced courses and often required deep thinking and careful analysis. The professor looked around the room and then fixed his eyes on Sundar. "You seem confident so far, Pichai. Let's see how you handle this one," he said, almost daring him. The students all turned to watch as Sundar stood up again, calm and ready. This was another moment where many expected Sundar to struggle, because the problem was truly difficult. Sundar began by reading the problem carefully. Unlike some students who might rush to write something down, he took a moment to understand what the problem was really asking. He thought about the meaning behind the equations, the variables, and how they related to each other. Then he started writing on the board, explaining each step clearly to the class. He showed how he was breaking the problem into smaller parts, making it easier to solve piece by piece. As Sundar worked through the problem, the students watched in silence. Some of them whispered quietly to each other, impressed by his calm and logical approach. His chalk moved smoothly across the board as he wrote equations, drew diagrams, and explained concepts. It was clear he was not just repeating memorized formulas, but was actually thinking through the problem in real time. The professor watched with a mixture of surprise and respect. This was no longer just a simple answer to a problem. It was a demonstration of deep understanding. Sundar's solution was elegant and practical, connecting the math to things they could see and experience in real life. The way he linked abstract numbers to physical phenomena amazed everyone. When Sundar finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, some students began to clap quietly. The professor nodded and said, "Very good, Pichai. Your method shows a strong grasp of the material and an ability to apply it. But remember, math is only useful if it can solve real problems." This moment was important. The professor was no longer trying to embarrass Sundar. Instead, he was challenging him to think beyond just solving equations, to see math as a tool to understand and change the world. Sundar appreciated this new challenge. It made him even more interested in math and its possibilities. After class, several students came to Sundar to ask questions and to learn from him. He patiently explained concepts again and helped them understand the difficult material. His calm and clear explanations made complicated topics easier for others to grasp. This made Sundar more popular among the students, who saw him not only as a great mathematician, but also as a kind and helpful person. The professor, too, began to respect Sundar more openly. Although he did not say it directly to the class, he began to recommend Sundar for special projects and research opportunities. He saw that Sundar was not just talented, but also hard-working and humble, qualities that any teacher admires. Meanwhile, Sundar continued his studies with the same focus and dedication. He didn't let praise or attention change him. Instead, he kept learning, exploring new topics, and pushing himself to understand things deeply. He read books beyond the syllabus and practiced problems that others avoided because they were too difficult. His approach to learning was different from many students. While some wanted quick answers or easy solutions, Sundar believed that true understanding came from patience and hard work. This attitude helped him grow stronger every day. Outside the classroom, Sundar also developed friendships with other students who shared his interests. They formed study groups and discussed ideas late into the night. These discussions often went beyond just math. They talked about technology, engineering, and even future possibilities in science and computing. Sundar's reputation continued to grow quietly. People in the engineering department started to hear about the boy who could solve the toughest math problems with ease and explain them clearly to others. Some professors invited him to give guest lectures or to assist in research work. Even with all this attention, Sundar remained humble and focused. He knew that talent alone was not enough. It was hard work, discipline, and a willingness to learn that made the real difference. One day the professor approached Sundar after class and said something that surprised him. "You have a rare gift, Pichai, but gifts are only useful if you use them well. Keep pushing yourself and don't be afraid to explore new ideas. Remember, the future belongs to those who understand how to use knowledge to solve real problems." These words stayed with Sundar. They motivated him to think beyond textbooks and exams. He started imagining how math and technology could solve big problems in the world, like improving communication, making devices smarter, or helping people in their daily lives. The challenges in the calculus class became a foundation for Sundar's future. They taught him how to face difficult problems calmly, how to think creatively, and how to communicate complex ideas simply and clearly. These skills would later become essential in his career as a leader in technology. Looking back, Sundar understood that the professor's initial attempts to challenge and even humiliate him were actually a blessing in disguise. They forced him to rise above fear and self-doubt. They pushed him to work harder and to believe in his own abilities. The classroom that once felt intimidating became a place of growth and discovery. Sundar's success was not just about solving math problems. It was about learning how to learn, how to persevere, and how to turn challenges into opportunities. As the semester went on, Sundar's confidence grew. He no longer felt like the quiet boy in the back row. He became a respected student and a source of inspiration for others. The calculus professor, once his toughest critic, became one of his strongest supporters. This story of challenge and triumph showed that true talent is not about being loud or flashy. It is about patience, hard work, and a passion for learning. Sundar Pichai's journey in that calculus classroom was just the beginning of a much bigger story. A story of a boy who quietly became a math genius, and later, a global leader in technology. As Sundar Pichai moved further in his studies, something remarkable was happening. The challenges he had faced in his calculus class were beginning to shape his entire way of thinking. Not just about math, but about life itself. What had started as a struggle against a strict professor and difficult problems had become a journey of self-discovery and growth. Sundar was no longer just the quiet student who kept to himself. His classmates now recognized him as someone special, not because he shouted or showed off, but because of his calm confidence and deep understanding. He had earned their respect and admiration, not through words, but through actions. One day the professor asked Sundar to help organize a special workshop for students interested in advanced mathematics and technology. This was a big opportunity, as it involved coordinating with other departments, preparing materials, and even speaking in front of a large group. Sundar accepted the responsibility quietly but with enthusiasm. He saw it as another chance to learn and grow. Preparing for the workshop was not easy. Sundar spent many late nights researching new topics and figuring out how to explain complex ideas in simple ways. He wanted to make sure that the workshop was interesting and useful for everyone, not just for students who were already good at math. He believed that everyone deserved a chance to understand and enjoy the subject. When the day of the workshop arrived, Sundar stood in front of a room full of students and professors. He spoke clearly and confidently, sharing ideas about calculus, its applications, and how math could be fun and exciting. Many students who had once struggled with math listened carefully, inspired by his explanations. Some even came up to him afterward to thank him for making a difficult subject easier to understand. The professor watched from the back of the room, quietly proud. He had seen many students come and go, but Sundar was different. Not only was he brilliant, but he also had the ability to inspire others, a quality that teachers rarely find in their students. After the workshop, Sundar's reputation grew even more. Professors began inviting him to help with research projects, especially those involving the application of math in technology. Sundar eagerly accepted these opportunities. He loved working on real problems, using math to create solutions that could make a difference. One project involved designing algorithms for better data management. Sundar worked closely with computer science students and professors, applying his mathematical knowledge to optimize processes. His contributions were valuable, and soon he was recognized as a key member of the team. Despite these successes, Sundar remained humble. He never forgot the early days when he was just a quiet boy sitting at the back of the classroom unsure of himself. He knew that his journey was far from over, and he was determined to keep learning and improving. In addition to his academic work, Sundar also began thinking about the future. He was fascinated by technology and its potential to change the world. He imagined creating tools and devices that could help millions of people communicate better, access information faster, and live smarter lives. This vision gave him a new sense of purpose. He realized that math was not just an academic subject, but a powerful tool that could drive innovation and progress. His love for calculus and problem-solving became the foundation for his dreams. Sundar's story also spread beyond the campus. Alumni and industry leaders heard about the young man who had impressed his professors and peers with his talent and dedication. Some even reached out to him, offering mentorship and advice. One mentor, a successful engineer from a major technology company, encouraged Sundar to pursue further studies abroad. He explained that studying in a different environment would expose him to new ideas and opportunities. Sundar was excited by the idea, but also a little nervous. Moving to a new country, adapting to a new culture, and facing unfamiliar challenges would not be easy. But Sundar remembered the lessons he had learned in his calculus class about facing challenges with patience, confidence, and determination. He decided to take the risk, knowing that growth often comes from stepping out of one's comfort zone. With the support of his family and mentors, Sundar applied to universities in the United States. He was accepted into a prestigious program that combined engineering and management, perfectly matching his interests. This was the next step on his journey. Before leaving, Sundar met with his calculus professor one last time. The professor congratulated him warmly and told him, "You have a bright future ahead. Keep pushing yourself, keep asking questions, and never lose your curiosity. That is what makes a true scientist and leader." Sundar thanked him sincerely, realizing how much that challenging calculus class had shaped his path. The professor's tough questions, the moments of doubt, and the eventual respect had all played a part in preparing him for what lay ahead. As Sundar boarded the plane to the United States, he felt a mix of excitement and determination. He knew that new challenges awaited him, but he was ready. The boy who had once been silent and unsure was now a confident young man with a clear vision and the skills to make it happen. His journey was just beginning. The lessons from the calculus classroom had given him more than knowledge. They had given him strength, resilience, and a passion for discovery. Sundar Pichai was ready to take on the world. After Sundar Pichai arrived in the United States for his higher studies, a whole new chapter of his life began. Moving to a new country was both exciting and challenging. Everything was different: the culture, the language, the teaching style, and even the way students interacted. But Sundar was not one to be easily overwhelmed. He remembered the lessons from his calculus professor back home: to face challenges patiently and with confidence. These lessons gave him the courage to adapt and succeed in this new environment. At the university, Sundar found himself surrounded by brilliant students from all over the world. The classes were demanding, and the competition was tough. Yet, Sundar's approach was the same as always: hard work, patience, and a deep curiosity to understand the subject. He spent long hours in the library, studying complex engineering problems and learning about the latest technologies. One thing that surprised Sundar was the way professors encouraged open discussion and collaboration. Unlike the strict classroom he was used to, here students were invited to ask questions freely and explore different ideas. Sundar quickly embraced this style, participating actively in class and group projects. He found that sharing ideas and working with others made learning even more interesting. Sundar also made many new friends who shared his passion for technology and innovation. Together they would stay late, working on coding projects or brainstorming solutions for real-world problems. These friendships gave Sundar a sense of belonging, easing the loneliness he sometimes felt being far from home. Despite the challenges, Sundar's hard work started to pay off. He excelled in his courses and earned respect from his professors and peers alike. His calm demeanor and ability to solve problems quickly made him stand out. Professors often invited him to assist in research projects or to mentor younger students who needed help. One important project Sundar worked on involved developing software tools to improve user experience on computers and smartphones. This work excited him because it was practical and could reach millions of people. He enjoyed combining his knowledge of engineering with creativity to design better, more user-friendly technology. Sundar's reputation grew beyond the university as well. He started attending technology conferences and networking events where he met industry leaders and innovators. These experiences broadened his horizons and inspired him to think bigger. After completing his studies, Sundar received job offers from several major tech companies. He chose to join a company that was working on cutting-edge internet technologies. This was a perfect fit for his skills and interests. In his new job, Sundar faced fresh challenges. The tech industry was fast-paced and constantly changing. 2. Keep up. He had to learn quickly and work well with teams from different backgrounds. Sundar's experience in collaborating during university helped him adapt smoothly. He soon earned a reputation as a thoughtful problem solver and a leader who listened carefully to others. His ability to simplify complex ideas and focus on user needs helped the company create popular products. Sundar never forgot the values that had guided him since his calculus days: humility, perseverance, and a passion for learning. Even as he rose through the ranks, he stayed grounded and focused on making a positive impact through technology. Over time, Sundar's leadership skills became as important as his technical expertise. He took on roles where he managed teams, encouraged innovation, and helped shape company strategy. His calm and respectful manner made him a trusted figure among colleagues. One of Sundar's key strengths was his ability to bring people together. He believed that diverse perspectives led to better solutions and fostered an environment where everyone could contribute their best ideas. This inclusive approach earned him admiration and loyalty. As Sundar's career progressed, he worked on major projects that changed how people around the world accessed information and communicated. His work made technology more accessible, reliable, and helpful for millions. Looking back, Sundar often thought about his journey. From a quiet student in India facing a challenging calculus professor to a global technology leader, each step had taught him valuable lessons about resilience, learning, and leadership. His story showed that true success is not just about talent or intelligence, but about character and the willingness to keep growing, no matter the obstacles. Sundar's calm confidence, rooted in hard work and curiosity, became his greatest strength. Today, Sundar Pichai is known not just for his achievements, but for the inspiring path he followed, one that began with a young boy quietly solving tough math problems and grew into a visionary leader shaping the future of technology for the world.